My dear friends, the institution of the Holy Eucharist is one of the most profound mysteries of the Rosary. In the fifth Luminous Mystery, the Lord Jesus, while at the Last Supper, gave Himself to us in His body and blood as food for our earthly journey, to sustain us both in body and soul. This manna from heaven is a sacrament and a sublime mystery given to us Christians. And as the Fathers of the Second Vatican Council stated, it is the source and summit of the Christian life. Accordingly, the other sacraments as well as every ministry of the Church and every work of the apostolate are tied together with the Eucharist and are directed towards it. And so the very life of the entire Church is linked to the Holy Eucharist and it flows from it. Pope St. John Paul II says that much of the luminous mysteries is a revelation of the kingdom now present in the person of Jesus. And nowhere is the statement more appropriate, my dear friends, than in the institution of the Holy Eucharist. When on the night before He was to suffer and die on the cross, Jesus gave us His body and blood to the Church as an everlasting remembrance. It was to be both a true meal and the living memorial of His sacrifice on the cross. And therefore the Holy Eucharist perpetuates Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. Jesus died once and for all and left His Church a memorial of His death and resurrection as a sacrament of love, a sign of unity and a bond of charity. The Paschal banquet in which Christ is consumed, the mind is filled with grace and a pledge of future glory is already given to us. So when we participate in the Mass, we are brought to the Last Supper, to the holy sacrifice of the cross. The gift of Holy Communion is God's answer to our spiritual as well as our physical hunger. It is a physical food that is ingested and digested by our bodies in the natural way, yet it is also a unique food in that it feeds the soul. Also, receiving the Holy Eucharist in our final hours is the single most valuable thing we can do before we die. The Viaticum. It is the bread of angels that carries us to the next life. St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the great saints of the Holy Eucharist, says, "Material food first changes us into the one who eats it, and then, as a consequence, restores to him lost strength and increases his vitality. But spiritual food, on the other hand, changes the person who eats it into itself, into the food itself. Thus, the effect proper to the sacrament is the conversion of man into Christ, because we are consuming the body and blood of the Lord, so that he may no longer live, but Christ lives in him. And consequently, it has the double effect of restoring the spiritual strength he had lost by his sins and defects, and of increasing the strength of his virtues, because he now becomes another Christ. The special gift of the Holy Eucharist will remain with the Church until the end of time. So when we doubt God's presence in the Church and in our lives, we can always remember that Jesus Christ is present to us in a very tangible way, both physically and spiritually. God has not forgotten His people. He becomes present to us physically each time we celebrate the Mass. God knows our spiritual hunger and feeds us appropriately. He gives us food for the journey.